Welcome back. This is the final video in the PDF knit-along series, and this time we're going to do the sleeves. In this video I'm going to show you how to get the sleeves started. I'm going to show you a great trick for keeping track of the number of rounds you've worked in your sleeves, and then we're going to talk about finishing, particularly those of you who are making a zippered cardigan. I'm going to show you how to put that zipper in. Alright, so let's get started. The first step towards working your sleeves is to return your stitches to the needle from the lifeline. And I like to do that with the lifeline in place the full time. And every once in a while you come to something that looks like this. And that pink is the lifeline that's been pulled through when the stitch came unraveled. So what you do when you get to a stitch like that is to pull both sides of the lifeline until the stitch pops back up through, and then slide it onto the needle. This is the sleeve that has that double slip knot. I wanted to show you how to deal with that. Okay, so following the lifeline through, things get a little loose here, but this is your final stitch. And then here is the double loop from the slip knot. And I'm going to go ahead and put that on the needle. Alright, turn things around and check everything out. And now I can pull out the lifeline. You want to hold on to your lifeline because I have a trick I can show you for an easy way to keep track of the number of rounds you've worked in the sleeve. This is the underarm, and the first thing you do in the sleeve is pick up a stitch at the top of this line of purls. This is where you worked your increases, starting at the underarm going down to the front edge. Alright, so pick up a stitch in the top of the purls. Alright, the next stitch on the needle right now is that slip knot. You do not want to work that. That's not a stitch. But you can remove it now because you are ready to work the first stitch on the needle. This has kept that first stitch secure. Alright, so slide it off and work that first stitch, and then you can just give it a tug and it'll, unknot. You'll weave those ends in later, and then work the rest of the way around the sleeve stitches. When you work Judy's Magic Cast On, the stitches for the sleeves were twisted. I automatically untwist my stitches when I run a lifeline. It's just habit for me. But if you did not do that, your stitches will be leaning slightly to the right. So let's see. Here are 3 stitches that are twisted, and you can see there's a slight right angle to these stitches and a slight left angle to these stitches. All right. If your stitches look like this, knit them through the back loop. And you can tell if you've got it right if the feet of your stitch, if these are legs, these are feet, if you have your feet crossed, so there's a little cross there, then you have twisted the stitch when you worked it, and you do not want to do that. So work all the way around to that stitch you picked up, and I'll show you what you're going to do with that lifeline. I've just worked the final sleeve stitch. This is a stitch I picked up, and I'm going to purl that next, and this is the beginning of the round. But I have a trick I want to show you before I finish this setup round. What I want you to do is take your lifeline yarn and just lay it between these 2 stitches. Just like that. All right, and then purl the stitch you picked up. It's going to be really loose. You can get that tension sorted out when you weave in ends, and place your marker. Now this is your beginning of your round. And then you just keep working your rounds. You're going to work 5 rounds even and then work a decrease round. And that yarn you placed here is going to help you keep track of how many rounds you've worked. I've worked ahead a bit on the other sleeve. Here is my former lifeline now row counter, and I can count the number of bars in the gap above it, and it'll tell me how many rounds I've worked. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, this pattern tells you to work a decrease round every 6th round. So having worked 5 rounds, I'm now ready for a decrease round. I'm almost at the end of the 6th round, the decrease round. I'm going to work my knit 2 together. And before you work your next stitch, your purl, take your scrap yarn and just lay it over the yarn. And now work your purl. And then once again, work your 5 rounds. You'll be able to count the number of bars above your stitch, and when you have 5 bars, it's time to work a decrease round. This trick not only helps you keep track of the number of rounds you've worked, but it helps you keep track of the number of decreases you've worked. This is where I started, so that's not a decrease round. But all I have to do is count every place that the yarn changes sides, and that's the number of decrease rounds I worked. So here are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 decrease rounds. That is so much easier than actually looking at, okay, there's a decrease. All right, now here's another one. And then when you're done, just snag it and pull it out. Once you're finished with your sleeves, you need to lightly block your garment. You do this by washing it, getting all the water out that you can, and then putting it on a flat surface to air dry, and kind of finger press out those garter stitch edges if they are really persistently rolling up. I like to do this in my washing machine. My washing machine has a rinse and spin cycle. Clearly not all yarn types will allow you to do this, but if you can get away with it, it really does get the most water out possible, and that just dramatically reduces the amount of drying time that you have. Then you weave in your ends, and the only people who have something left to do are those who are putting in a zipper. For those of you who are going to install a zipper, you're going to put it into your completely dry blocked garment. Go ahead and weave in all of your ends. And I want you to sew this zipper in by hand. Now, I'm a big fan of the nitpicker method of installing a zipper, but in this case it was not a good choice. I tried it on one of my finished garments, and it really gave a hello, here I am, I'm your zipper kind of effect. And what I want is a hidden zipper, like this. Now, the zipper is completely obscured by those garter stitch edges. So here's how you do that. The first step in the process of installing a zipper is to turn the garment wrong side out and lay it on a flat surface. Make sure all the bumps and wiggles are out and align the 2 sides carefully together. Then measure from the top of the garter stitch edge on the lower edge to the point where you picked up stitches at the neck. And that is going to be the maximum zipper length that you can use along this edge. Then take your zipper with the wrong side facing you and align it carefully in so that the center of the zipper is right between the 2 sides, and then you're going to pin that in place. Once you've pinned the 2 halves of the zipper in place, unzip the zipper, and then you can begin to sew it in place by hand. Now, when you're sewing it by hand, do not let the zipper move up or down. You want the teeth to align exactly along the edges you see here, and you may need to shift the zipper a little bit left and right to be able to get that alignment, but do not let the zipper move up and down, because then the 2 sides of your garment won't align correctly. So here I have the half of the zipper on the left has been whip stitched into place, and the zipper on the right is still pinned in place. And so what I want you to do at this point is to zip the 2 halves together and make sure that the garment still aligns correctly. It's much easier to shift things here than it is after you've sewn everything into place. Alright, and this is a close-up of how the zipper looks at this point on the wrong side and on the right side. Just a quick whip stitch along the outer edge, and it is not secured to the garter stitch edge very closely. At this point, both sides have been whip stitched along the outside edge, and you can see that it really is not a hidden zipper. Those 2 garter stitch edges really do open up and show it. The only way you're going to have a completely hidden zipper is to do a second line of stitches closer to the teeth. Now, I also want to have my zipper tape covered with satin ribbon on the inside, and I do not want to have to sew twice along that edge. So what I do is to combine the 2 steps into one. So in one process, I am both securing the zipper to the garter stitch edge and installing the satin ribbon. Just a quick word of warning here, it is really easy to get too close to the teeth, to the zipper teeth, when you are sewing the satin ribbon to the zipper tape to the garter stitch edge. So before you've gotten too far, try to zip the zipper and make sure that you've allowed enough room for the pull to move along the zipper teeth. Alright, at this point I have the satin ribbon sewn in along the zipper edge along one side of the satin ribbon, and I preferred to have the ribbon extend all the way up and around the hood as well. And here's a close-up of the ribbon sewn in place. Notice I've taken a little more care with my stitches along this edge than I did the original zipper tape. You're going to be able to see these.
The final step is to sew down the other side of the ribbon, and when I sewed it along the inside of the hood edge, I allowed it to pucker. This is because when you pull the hood up, it's going to stretch a little bit, and I wanted to be able to allow that fabric to continue to move as it normally would. And continuing with the ribbon up the hood is a matter of personal preference. You can omit it if you prefer.
Well, that pretty much wraps everything up. Thank you so much for participating in the knit along. I've had so much fun putting together these videos for you, and I am really, really looking forward to going to Ravelry and checking out your pictures of your pretty darn fabulous garments. That's like the best thing in the world for me as a designer, so please post your pictures. And I say it every time, but I really, really do mean it. Happy knitting!